The Mercedes E-Class has its work cut out fighting for a place in the company car park, with the likes of Audi, BMW, Jaguar and Lexus all trying to tempt executives to invest in their cars. Sensibly though, Mercedes hasn't tried to take on any of its rivals at their own game, concentrating instead on doing what it does best. That means the E-Class isn't just a pretty face, there's real substance behind that bold styling.
When you look at a car as smart as this, it's hard to believe there was any great debate about how it should look. Yet much discussion was had back in Mercedes HQ before this car went on sale, and most of that debate centred on one part: the headlights. You see, previous generations of the E-Class had twin headlights, and they were probably the feature most responsible for making it stand out from its rivals. So for the designers to propose these one-piece units was tantamount to a revolution. Still, despite all that discussion, the designers got their way, and we're mighty glad they did, because the car looks pretty damn fine to us. These part LED lights frame this trademark chrome grille that houses the company's famous three-pointed star, while the long bonnet and the chrome detailing mean this car means real business. And that's in this basic SE trim. If you want your E-Class to stand out that little bit more in the company car park, you can always upgrade to AMG line trim. That gives the car a sporty makeover with larger alloys, a unique body kit and sport suspension. You won't find any gimmicks inside an E-Class, but that's not to say it's conservative. On the contrary, everywhere you look there's an unmistakable feeling of high class and high quality. Leather upholstery is standard on every model in the range, along with this really beautiful contrasting dark aluminium trim and ambient lighting in the door panels. It's packed with the latest technology too. Most of the car's infotainment systems are controlled through this screen by a rotary controller on the centre console. Sadly, although that sounds great in principle, finding your way through the umpteen menus really takes some getting used to, and it's awkward that these shortcut buttons are sited in a different place to the controller. On the other hand, this setup does mean the dashboard is less cluttered than it might be, and thanks to the foot-operated parking brake and the fact that models with an automatic gearbox, which essentially is the entire range, have the gear selector here on the steering column, there's loads of space in the centre console to store your odds and sods. Perhaps most importantly, it's really spacious in here, with plenty of room in the front for a couple of 6-footers. These seats are heated as standard, and they're really comfortable over long distances. Stretch to the options list, you can even add massaging and cooling functions. It's just as luxurious here in the back seats. Thanks to the excellent head and legroom, you'll easily fit another couple of 6-foot-tall adults. The only disappointment is that this transmission tunnel in the floor makes life really uncomfortable for anybody sitting in this centre seat. The boot too is enormous, one of the biggest in its class in fact. But if there is a frustration, it's you don't get split folding rear seats as standard, and if you do want them, you'll be charged several £100 for the privilege. While some rivals pride themselves on their sporty drive, Mercedes is carving its own niche with comfort top of the agenda. With the notable exception of the E63 AMG, which is a superb high-performance saloon, every E-Class is at its best as a cruiser, smooth and comfortable for mile after mile. Away from the motorway, the car's much happier when the driver adopts a more relaxed driving style. But that's not to say the car isn't good or enjoyable to drive. In fact, although the suspension is set up for comfort, it's still nicely balanced and really well controlled. The steering is speed sensitive, so it combines easy low speed manoeuvring with sharper responses at high speed. And if you want things even more comfortable, you can specify the optional air suspension, but it's a very, very expensive option and it comes at a price that's really hard to justify. There are various engines to choose from, but most buyers will undoubtedly go for one of the diesel engines. Not only do they have lower CO2 emissions and better fuel economy than the petrol units, they also have useful extra pull at low revs, and that makes them much less hard work to drive. If money was no object, you'd go for the super smooth 6-cylinder E350. If you don't mind sacrificing a bit of refinement, then either of the cheaper and more economical 4-cylinder units do the job perfectly well enough. You might also consider the diesel-electric hybrid, which is the most economical powertrain in the range, but in our experience it only runs on electric power alone for a very limited amount of time, and when the diesel engine's called into action, it's really very unrefined.
You don't have to work too hard to find an executive car that's cheaper, more refined or more economical than the E-Class, but even so it still has a lot to recommend it. For a start, by focusing on comfort rather than out-and-out driving thrills, it offers something a little different to its rivals, and with its fine quality, spacious cabin and long list of standard equipment, it's well worth a look if you're after an executive car.